Manager, and in brief fashion I'm going to give a quick synopsis of tonight's meeting before we begin. After approving of previous meeting minutes and receiving various comments and reports, under new business the board will hear from Christine Hunter via telephone in preparation of taking action to award the Heroes Grove Amphitheater Phase 2 construction contract and a construction administration agreement for the Phase 3 project. Next, the board will consider change order number 1 to the paving project contract with Pensy Supply. After this, action on an agreement for crossing guard services with All City Management Services Incorporated will be taken up by the board. Subsequently, the board will consider action on a preliminary and final subdivision plan for Shane and Diane Deven at 7052 Creek Crossing Drive before moving to take action on improvement guarantees and the payment of township and authority bills. And with all that said, the members of the board are seated and prepared to begin business.
Thank you, Mr. Gottschall. We'll call this meeting of the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors to order. And if everyone would please stand, and Supervisor Lindsay will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll move now to the approval of minutes from the meeting of, that can't be right, Monday, May 18th?
May 5th.
Monday, May 18th? Oh,
May
that's,
5th.
no, that's,
Oh, it's updated May the 18th.
Oh.
Sorry.
okay.
Meeting of May 5th.
The meeting of May
May
5th,
5th.
thank you. Okay, there's a divergence between the two. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of May 5th, 2020?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the minutes of May the 5th as prepared and circulated.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you. This normally would be the time for public comment because of the restrictions relative to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have not had public access to the municipal building here. So we will not have public comment here tonight. We do, however, remind members of the public, obviously our meetings are on television. We have the YouTube channel. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to call the municipal building, to email township manager, any member of the Board of Supervisors. Always happy to have your comments if you wish to call us and have input into what's on the agenda. And we are very, very hopeful that when we have our next meeting, the first meeting in June, that we will be able to allow public back into our meetings. We're very much looking forward to having you all back with us. I will announce that prior to this meeting and after, the Board of Supervisors did meet in executive session to receive information from township staff. With that, do any members of the board have any comments?
Today is Elected Officials Day in the country. I heard it on the radio this morning. So congratulations for being elected, guys.
Didn't know that.
I didn't either till I heard it this morning.
Oh. Calls for an ice cream afterward or something. Anybody else?
Are they open?
They are. They
3B,
are,
yeah.
yes. Mhm.
3B.
You can buy ice cream.
For a breakfast last year?
There would be an insurrection if you were not allowed to buy ice cream. Custard. It's custard.
It's essential.
Anything else, ladies and gentlemen?
January.
With that, the manager's report, Mr. Gottschall.
Yes, sir. Members of the board, I want to continue to update the board on the ongoing census process, particularly as it relates to Lower Paxton Township. So as of the 14th, so last Thursday, the township's self-response rate, and again, that's the rate at which our residents are completing their census obligations on their own, through the telephone, website, or on a paper form, is up to 70.6%, putting us now in the top 10 of the list. We have slid down the list from number 7 to number 10. And that is across the county for such rates. West Hanover Township is still number 1 in their self-response rate. And again, just to give some context, the 2010 self-response rate was 77.3, so we are rapidly moving to the place where we were in 2010, so that's a good thing. And I'm just going to continue to update the board on those numbers and the township as to where we are on that.
Brad, how long do people have to continue responding? Do you know offhand?
I do not. I will get that date for you, but I know it's coming to a close here shortly as the Census Bureau starts to send out people onto the streets collecting the data themselves.
Well, for those folks who have not yet responded, please do so. It's very important for the municipality that we have an accurate count. A lot of federal and state funding depends on those numbers, so we want to make sure we have everybody counted. Anything else, Mr. Godshall?
No, sir.
Thank you. And I see no items under old business, and we have a number of things to do under new business. And we're going to talk about the Heroes Grove Amphitheater Phase 2 construction contract. And were we able to get Christine on the phone?
Yes, sir.
Christine, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, hi, Christine.
Hello.
Want to explain to the board what we're doing here with this Phase 2 construction contract, please?
Okay. So phase 2, we have discussed this before, but it involves the stage roof as the main element of phase 2 construction. It was posted for public bid, and the low bidder is ECI Construction. Their bid is within the available funds for the project, and so I'm recommending awarding the contract to them, including the base bid and all alternates.
And do we have any questions from board members?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Christine, and maybe you have, or maybe Brad has, I see that we have the bid proposal, but it's not signed by the East Coast Contracting.
Shelley, did they drop off? I understood that they were going to drop off the signed contract this afternoon. Did they drop that off, Shelley?
Do we have copy?
Okay. I have a hard time hearing what other people are saying.
Yes.
At any rate, so the contractor did drop off the signed contract this afternoon.
The board will have the actual signed documents back in the boardroom for after
Right, for us
the
to
meeting.
sign. But
Correct.
But I don't see that they've signed it.
They have signed it.
And you have a copy that they have signed.
Yes,
Okay.
the document that was posted
Okay.
to the site was not the actual signed, but we do have the physically signed document.
I won't sign until they sign.
Yes, we
Okay.
have it.
Thank you.
I did notice that the two bids, there was a considerable difference in the bid amounts of almost $100,000. I don't know if Christine can hear my question is, what accounts for the very large discrepancy in the two bids? I mean, I'm not unhappy that we have a lower bid, but I'm wondering, is there something at play that's causing it to be that far apart?
Did you hear that?
I am not able to understand what people are saying. I'm sorry.
I think I can answer it for you.
Okay, Mr. Stein can answer
You
it,
can repeat
Christine.
the question.
Yeah, East Coast Contracting had to withdraw their bid because they made an arithmetical error in the bid that resulted in their bid being way too low. So the figure you see up there for them is not reality, and also they're not going to be awarded the bid because they had to withdraw.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually the bidder that would be accepted would be ECI Construction.
Okay.
Oh,
So-
okay.
So we're
yeah.
taking action on East Coast Contracting for 298.
No,
Yes, we're
East
not.
Coast is not. They were the apparent low bidder, but they had to withdraw their bid because they had a mistake in it, which resulted in their total being much lower than it was supposed to be. And that was the only option they had. Otherwise, they would have had to do the job for what their bid that they submitted actually was. But they withdrew. So the only bid you have to consider is ECI Construction.
Okay, because all the supporting documents in our packet
Yeah.
are East Coast.
Or East Coast.
Are East
Yeah.
Coast.
Yeah, well, the ones that I saw, they were ECI.
Yeah, I don't see anything for ECI in the packet.
Well, there is, there is, it is there. Yeah, it's number 2 in our packet.
Yeah, it just struck me that it's highly unusual, especially given the amounts, to have that big of a divergent. Usually the bids come in relatively close, and I mean, what, a $93,000 difference, if it was millions of dollars, might have made sense, but on
This-
389,000, it just seemed to
Yeah,
be
I
very
see that.
odd.
I see
Yeah,
that.
I think if East Coast hadn't
But it's
missed
not
some
on our
things
docs.
when they calculated the bid,
Anyone
they
I
would have been
see
much
is
closer.
East
Yeah,
Coast.
Okay, so we only have one bid, and it's the bid for $389,000. And how much money do we have for the project?
Actually, I think with all the alternates, it's over 400,000. Isn't that right, Brad?
Just trying to see here.
Christine, how much grant money did we receive for the project?
How much grant money?
The available funding is $573,000. There was a funding summary that I included
Yes.
in what I submitted to the township. So the funding exceeds the costs.
Always good to hear.
So there was $573,000 worth of funding. Professional fees, this construction contract, plus a $10,000 some allowance for, there's always things that happen during construction that are unforeseen. So I like to make sure we have a buffer for any change orders, and that phase 2 cost is about $95,000 less than the funding.
So what is the total amount of the bid that we're going to be voting on tonight? Because it was 389 plus.
389.
403. It's the base bid plus 4 alternates. So the total is $403,949.84.
But our docs say 389.
Right, but that doesn't include all the alternates.
Yeah, there was another document that had alternates on it.
That was the base bid. That was the base bid.
That was the base bid.
389 is the base.
It is.
ECI. I don't know if I can find it
The
here.
alternates are what, 14,949?
I believe that's correct.
Well, what's the total?
403, total, 403,949.
And that- 403,549, right?
Yeah, 549.84.
403,949
Oh,
949.
949.
$9.84.
And 84 cents.
Okay.
At 84 cents. Let's not forget the 84 cents.
Oh, gee, 84 cents. too.
Yeah. Okay.
Christine,
So-
if there's money left over after all the change orders, will that go towards phase 3 or no? Because of it being grant money.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
If there's money left over from all the change orders, will the funds go towards phase 3?
That we are working on avenues to enable that to happen.
Okay, because I'm sure it's all grant money.
Right. We are under discussion with the county to see if there's the potential to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Christine, it's Norm. Can you hear me? What?
I can hear.
Shelley will repeat your.
Is there a question?
It
Yes.
may work here if we put it right under the speaker,
There you go.
possibly.
Christine, I know you had construction not scheduled to start until after the 10th of August, and it was confirmed tonight that our movies and our concerts are in fact canceled. So that being the case, can we move the construction project up a little bit to get it done a little bit sooner?
I that. There will be some lead time because, especially for the roof, there needs to be a building permit. So the company has to draw up the plans and then get a building permit and then fabricate it following that. So there'll be some lead time on the roof. But I know that ECI Construction is anxious to get started, and they will keep it moving as fast as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know anybody who can move the building permit process along a little more quickly?
There's a potential
Yeah,
there.
there's potential there, right?
Well,
this
now
is-
that
this
she
is-
knows that, everything has been canceled,
Yeah,
she could
Well-
maybe start ahead of time too. Yeah.
that's good. Make sure it gets done before weather turns bad, which this year, who knows? Any other questions for Christine? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we award the Heroes Grove Amphitheater Phase 2 construction contract to ECI Construction LLC in the amount of $403,949.84.
So moved, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good. And Christine, we're going to hold you for the next item here. We need to take action approving the authorization of the Heroes Grove Phase 3 Construction Administration Agreement.
Right.
Let's see if I
So
can bring this
the,
in.
the thought here is we have some funding in place for Phase 3. We'd like to get started on the design of that so that we can move as quickly from Phase 2 to 3 if possible. We think we could get a good price some good bids. If a contractor is already on site, doesn't have to demobilize and come back. They can, there's some benefit financially there. We don't see getting additional grant funding right now from other sources. However, this excess funding from Phase 2, we are working on getting that usable for Phase 3. So that puts us in a better situation financially for Phase 3. Gives us more room for that. So with that, we'd like to move forward with the design of the Welcome Building and some estimating that'll get us closer to what it's actually going to cost to build it on site.
Okay.
So, Christine, just a question. It's $245,000. I see 45 is for the professional fees. Is the 200,000? It says preliminary construction cost estimate. So we're approving this authorization for 245,000. Is it? I'm assuming the possibility the construction cost will exceed the 200. Does that mean you'll have to come back and ask for additional funds?
What I'm asking for authorization today for is the $45,000 for the design. That's what I'm asking for authorization for.
Okay.
And then once those plans are developed, we will put it out to bid, and then we would ask for authorization for a contract for construction.
So we're only
So
voting on the
part-
45.
Yeah, so we're only at, yes, exactly. That was my point. So the approval here is for the authorization of $45,000 for professional fees to develop this.
Right.
Okay.
And just for the public listening, I know sometimes we inside here, we kind of know the details more than folks may remember from all the times we talked about. The highlight for this phase 3, there are several items, but the highlight is the Welcome Building with the restroom and concession. And the highlight for the previous one, phase 2, is the roof.
Yes.
There are other things as well, but just so people can conceptualize what we're talking about when we're throwing all these numbers around, to give them an overview so they understand what it is we're talking about.
Right.
That's all.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve authorization for the expenditure of $45,000 to H. Edward Black for professional fees for the development of Phase 3.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Christine, I think we have you taken care of.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your consideration. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything. Okay, we now need to move to 9C, and we are going to need to take action on change order number 1. Apparently, we're anticipating more than one, for the 2020 paving project.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, change order number 1 to the paving project contract with Pensy Supply modifies the original contract by adding Parkway East from Linglestown Road and St. George Drive to the paving list. If you recall, the original bid with Pensy Supply was approximately $330,000 lower than the engineer's cost estimate, so very good news, and the associated project budget as well. So due to that funding gap in a positive light, the township is able to add in these extra streets for paving. The change order increases the original contract by $132,401.30 and is recommended by staff and engineer. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Brad, I have a question. I understand why we have the increase of $132,000 because we were able to add on. My question is, does anyone, obviously they didn't anticipate this one, but will there be any further anticipations or sudden pop-ups that's going to increase the project again before it's completed?
Not as a matter of scope change to the project. You know, there could be, physical anomalies or whatnot when you get out into the project, but not as it relates to the scope of the project itself.
I mean, normally change orders that can be 50, 60, 70,000, but when I see one for 132, that's a major change order.
Correct.
I just don't want to be blindsided by another one.
Yeah, no. Like I said, this is actually a good change order, adding number of streets to the list. But I believe Pensy Supply had ridden around with Public Works, to inspect the site, and I think they're usually pretty accurate with their numbers and do a pretty good job once they get out into the project. So I don't anticipate any large change orders after this point.
So Brad, the only
Yes.
reason for the change order is because the original one was so much less than what they had anticipated.
Yeah, the bid had come in much less than
Right.
had anticipated.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So we were able to add, given the project budget, we were able to add in
Okay,
some
so
additional
that was the
streets.
reason.
Correct.
Okay, yep, thank you.
And that always begs the question, why wasn't a better projection made from the beginning?
At least it's in our
The-
favor.
Well,
I mean, I understand these occur, and I'm not challenging that.
well,
Act-
and if you'll recall the conversation we had at the time, whenever we awarded the bid and it had come in low, our instructions back were, well, can we do more? Because we had set this money aside. We have significant need to step up our road paving project.
Right.
And having the funds available and being able to do more this season was our instruction to staff. And they followed through. So,
And it's certainly a lot cheaper to do it now where everybody there working.
Right.
yes, yeah.
And actually, not to belabor this, but actually the projections from the engineer were fairly accurate to industry standards at this point. But Pensy's bid had just come in far under what anybody could have expected. The cost of their materials, from what they're telling us, has gone down dramatically. So it just resulted in good pricing from their end. And the second highest bidder was actually more in line with what HRG had projected as the cost of the project. So it was all Pensy in a good way. So,
And is it accurate to say that the funding for this comes from liquid fuels tax or things that generally have to be used for roads?
correct.
That's
To some degree, yes.
to a large degree, I guess. Or we're also using other sources.
No, the source of funding for this project is solely liquid fuels.
Solely liquid.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
and the
yes.
reason I say that is in case anybody's watching and they're looking at this and they know the situation we're in and they know the budgetary decisions we're going to have to make and the revenue's drastically down, and knowing where we're at, just so they know that we can't just take this money and use it for the general fund and things like that. So
No.
that would be a whole different conversation, but we
Well,
can't.
there's also considerable public interest in road paving. That's probably, when people talk to me about township business, usually their first question is, when's my road going to get paved?
Right.
So,
That's a priority.
So, yeah, well, and it's also a core function of township government.
But they do need to know in this case, and maybe some others, that there are some monies that, we just can't move around.
So Brad, once we take action this evening, do we have any anticipated date that this project would begin?
Fairly quickly. Pensie's ready to roll on the project. We don't have to deal with school schedules or anything. That's usually the hang up in terms of busing and things. But we're Public Works and Pensie are both ready to
Good.
get it rolling.
Very good. Anything else? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve change order number 1 for the 2020 LP paving project to increase the change order in the amount of $132,401.30 as presented and recommended by Mr. Gutschall.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, now, item 9D, we need to take action on agreement for crossing guard services with All City Management Services, Inc. And this was a subject at our workshop a week ago. Anything new to add, Mr. Gottsel, or have we heard it all?
Essentially, you've heard it all, but I just did want to report that Director Koshiba had discussions with the contractor as a result of the board's commentary at last meeting about the session of Central Dauphin School District and the case that they may actually be in session more than 180 days, and so the contract that you have in front of you now this evening to act on is reflective of that discussion and changes that may have been made to address those concerns. But that's the only change that had been made.
Brad, and
Yes.
speaking of the contract, I noticed that it was not signed.
Yeah, we did. It was difficult to have the document turned around from the last meeting to now, given their shutdown. They are shut down as a business as well right now. Their I don't know if their headquarters is or what, but so we were not able to get the signed document in front of the board.
Because
For this
usually
meeting,
we
but-
don't like to pass things unless they are signed.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
we could certainly. There's really no time constraint, to pass this now. Although, well, there is a time constraint getting the appropriate employees hired and things. But now we know that the board is considering this.
Well, can't we just
All City could be.
take action contingent on the fact that it'll be signed?
We
Yeah.
certainly
Yeah.
could do that.
Exactly.
And then I had another question. Director Koshiba last week said that they're getting paid $15 an hour. It's my understanding that when they are hired, they get paid $12 an hour. That I guess the other three goes for workman's compensation.
I shouldn't say this because I'm not sure exactly, but I can't imagine that being the case. But I'll check in on that for you.
Okay, I know for a fact that it's $12, that they get
Okay.
paid $12 an hour. And I made it known last week that I was not in favor of this because I still feel that we, the township, did not do enough advertisement to give our residents the chance to do this. And I don't like dealing with a company that is on the other side of the country in California. So I just want to make that known that I will not be voting for this tonight.
Any other board members have comments?
I'll just, because I've raised some of the similar observations as Supervisor Lindsay, I'll be voting for it simply because even if, you know, you want to look back and say we could have done more, I think the challenge of year after year after year of maintaining enough workers to do this and alternates and everything, I think ultimately makes this the way to go. And I really don't want my public safety director putting too much time into those kinds of HR tasks and jobs. So you know, you could say, well, you know, if we really used all of our resources, maybe we could have generated what turned out to be a position and a half, you know, security
I'm just gonna
guards.
I'm going to add to that, Chris. I also think that this is a public relations thing for our police department to get out among the students that are in the school district. I know probably 30-some years ago they had Officer Friendly who went in the schools, you know, and I think that, you know, it's only 3 spots and they all don't call off at the same time every day. But I thought it would have been more of a public relations for the police department to have that type of a hands-on, you know, with the children of the school district.
Well, that's good, and we can do that in addition. I mean, we can come up with a whole bunch of ways for the police to be engaged with the students if we want. And I'm sure there's lots of ways we don't, without having to utilize security guards or crossing guards. So glad we had the discussion, and I'll be voting for it.
I have a couple comments I'd like to make also. I thank you, Ms. Lindsay. I also checked to see that there was no signed documents. Of course, that's a big issue for me always with any agreement that comes before us. So therefore, they had not signed their proposal. That was an issue for me. Item 2, also, Ms. Lindsay made comment. I do believe within this municipality that we can find 2 or 3 people who would welcome this opportunity for a couple hours each and every day. I can't believe that that's a stumbling block. Number 3, I still like local control. When you subcontract, I recognize phone calls can be made to the offices in E-Town. If they can't get someone, E-Town then calls LP. We've lost 10 or 15 minutes, whereas if we were in control, we could have a policeman on that corner within 5 to 7 minutes, and we have protected the lives of children. I come from an educational background. My intent has always been, what do you do to protect children? I think this is removing one more step. It delays time to put safety people where safety adults need to be for children. And then my last comment is the money that's being spent for a firm outside of Lower Paxton Township. I think those funds could be retained and used here in Lower Paxton Township, even within the police department itself. So for those 4 reasons, I will not be supporting this recommendation.
Let me just add one thing, because the public safety director isn't here. I don't think he would be endorsing a plan that would in any way compromise the safety of the school children. So
I'm not saying that he would, Chris. What I'm saying is that the logistics of time of getting the information from their regional office here, our people would have it immediately.
Okay, I understand. I just wanted to make sure nobody misinterpreted.
I don't think I
that.
was misunderstood at all.
What is the trial? How long is this contract?
1 year is what I
Yeah.
read.
Okay, so if it doesn't, obviously, if it's a nightmare, if it's not working out, if anything's compromised, or we have any qualms, we can all, you know, we could try to get the word out and do it for Lower Paxton residents.
Maybe too late then.
Well, let's just hope it's needed.
Let's hope we have,
You know,
yes,
that
let's hope
we
school is
we
open.
actually have this thing under control to the point we can have school.
Exactly.
That's
We may not even have-
another great concern to everybody. Mr. Zimas,
Exactly.
would you like to add anything to the conversation? Everybody else is, or are you okay?
Wish you wouldn't ask me.
I have one more
I
question.
didn't want to leave you out.
I mean, the company has done an adequate job recruiting people for other municipalities. And using whatever source that has worked for them, they might find a whole host of people in Lower Paxton Township, number one. Number two, I don't think Swatara Township, as an example, doesn't feel that their students are being safely rendered to by utilizing this company. So,
Norm, I think at one time, Adam had told us that Swatara, back when this all started, they only had one crossing guard.
well, it was one of the few that he checked with, and there were no
Well, it's
negative
just Swatara and
responses.
Elizabethtown in this area that is using, and I don't know how many crossing guards. So my question is, the contract's good for a year. If something happens halfway through, are we able to get out of it or no? Is there a 30-day, 60-day if we feel they're not fulfilling?
Yeah, there is a time period where either party can terminate based upon so many days' notice. I think it might be 60, but I'm not. My memory is bad on that one. So.
And I agree with Gary. I'm afraid that the lapse of time when the person called, because Mr. Kashiba did say the guy from California we were talking to did say that they would be going as far as 20 miles out of this area to find people. So if someone calls off at the last minute until they get in touch with somebody there, till they get here 20 miles away, and then till we get the call into the police, I hope it works out.
Well, we're not saying that kids are going to be crossing streets without a crossing guard, right?
Well, no.
That's the purpose of having them.
Yeah, but I
Right.
think what Chris is saying, if till the time frame till a police officer could get there, the kids might have already had to cross because there was nobody there. Because of, getting the call of somebody calling off, it's that time frame, like Mr. Christman said, where if they call off, we are in control. But now you have that next party that has to go from one to the other.
I don't want to engage myself in the discussion, the debate, but I think just from what I recall hearing from All City is that they, and again, I think I use the word hope. I think they have some business practices in play that I think they hope call-offs occur and they're able to fill call-offs and make those appropriate telephone calls to find replacements in a time frame that they aren't running into that type of a situation where they have kids crossing without a guard. But I think there's a time in the day at which All City will say, okay, we're obviously not going to be able to get a replacement. We have to call Lower Paxton to get a police officer out there. I'm not sure exactly what that logistically looks like, but I think they've been in business for a number of years, and I would hope that they have that answered already.
They're supposed to be a professional organization. There's too many what ifs, and the what ifs are all on a negative note. What if it's a successful program and it works out great? Then we'll continue it. If it doesn't, we won't do it after a year.
I would like for you to stay on top of this and let
Sure.
us know
Sure.
how often, when it does occur, how often the police officers do have to report.
Sure. I will
Thank you.
certainly get that for you. Absolutely.
Okay. Everybody had all their comments? I don't want to cut anybody off. Okay, with that, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
that we act on an agreement for crossing guard services with All City Management Services, Inc., as proposed by Mr. Gottschall.
Could you please add on contingent that the contract is signed?
Yes, please.
Yes, that goes without saying. On
Well,
a
we should-
contingent that the contract be signed.
And we'll sign it after we get their signed
Correct.
agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, and Mr. Judd will second it. I would like to ask the secretary for a roll call vote, since we appear to have a divergence of opinion.
Mr. Zumas?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
No.
Mr. Judd?
Yes.
Mr. Chrisman?
No.
Mr. Henry?
Yes. got put in the middle on that one.
I knew that's where that was going to go.
Well, and I'm doing so based on the recommendation of the public safety director that we do this. And, you know, we've had a long discussion multiple times on this. And especially if it's not working, we can be out of it in 60 to 90 days.
Right.
It's worth a try. And if it works, Mr. Zuma said, that's great. If it doesn't, then we go to Plan B. But we're not into anything long-term that
Right.
I would have had a problem with.
Mr. Chairman, it does say 60 days.
60 days?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
But we don't know when school will begin either.
there's that. Well, a lot of things remain to be determined. Okay, with that, let's now move to 9E. We have subdivision and land development, a couple of items. We do need to take action on a preliminary and final subdivision plan for Shane and Diane Devan at 7052 Creek Crossing Drive. And I'm trying to see if do we have a PDF with the plot plan on? Oh, there we go. It is, of course, sideways, but
Just click the rotate button. If you go up in the gray stripe, yep, see the rotate button? Right there. Just keep clicking it until it's right side up. Oops.
now we're upside down.
There we go.
There we go. All right, thank you. Steve is also going to get paid as our IT guy tonight. And Mr. Godshall, who do we have on the phone?
Yes, members of the board, we have Mr. Jeff Staub.
Oh, yeah.
On behalf of the applicants. And I, before we get to Mr. Staub, I guess in typical fashion here, I'll give the rundown of the project, the subdivision, if I may. So just in summary of the plan, the preliminary final subdivision plan for 7052 Creek Crossing Drive proposes to subdivide the existing parcel, which has a total area of 32.234 acres, and create two separate lots. Lot 1 is to be a new single-family dwelling and will have a total area of 1.999 acres, and Lot 2 will be the residual lot with a total area of 30.23 acres. The site is located within the residential low-density R1 zoning district and will be served by public sewer and water supply. They do have, looks like 4 waiver requests. The first being a request to waive requirements of providing a plan sheet of a specific size. Staff supports that request. The second request is a waiver request of the requirement to provide an erosion and sediment control plan. Staff believes that this waiver request should be deferred until such point that the applicant on the newly subdivided lot is coming forward with a building plan. The third request is that the applicant is requesting a waiver of the requirement to provide a stormwater management plan. Same thing, staff supports this request of a deferment for the aforementioned reason. And fourth request is that the applicant is requesting a waiver of the requirement to provide sidewalk along the frontage of Creek Crossing Drive only. Staff supports this waiver request as the associated development was planned for sidewalk along one side of the roadway only.
Okay, I was just going to ask you about that. 'Cause
Yes.
it didn't say one, and I just,
Yes.
okay. all
Yes.
right, no problem.
And then there are 5 administrative comments and 3 general comments which have been addressed by the applicant actually already and provided to HRG for review within the last week. But of course, due to the physical limitations of our engineer HRG under the shutdown of business, and also under a personal milestone for Mr. Hines, just having had delivered their baby, actually I think yesterday.
Really?
Yes.
Boy or girl?
A boy, Lincoln. is the name of the
great
little
name.
one. Yes. So, due to those two reasons, Mr. Hines has not been able to receive the commentary from the applicant and provide a revised memo. So,
So he's
they have
using
been
that as
addressed.
an excuse. Yeah. Okay.
Make sure we get a detailed memo on the baby.
Okay.
Well,
We'll do.
congratulations to him if he's listening.
Yes.
I'm sure he probably has other things to
Doubt
do
it.
tonight than listen to us.
So with all that said, like I said, Mr. Staub is on the line, and I'll unleash him.
Questions for Mr. Staub?
I have a question for Brad before I ask Jeff a question.
Yes, sir.
Brad, on number 2 and number 3, it indicates that staff believes the waiver requested should be deferred. And I hear that, and I know that it'll get recorded in tonight's minutes, but where will it be memorialized in writing so that, in fact, as this moves forward, that will be brought to someone's attention other than, oh, I think that was approved in a board meeting a year or so ago?
I'd have to check with
Amanda's
Mrs.
not
Zerbe.
here. She
Yeah,
would know the answer to the question.
right, to see actually where that would be recorded, but I'm sure
But I-
somewhere within
Yeah.
the plan
Obviously,
documents.
it'll be in the approval letter.
Right.
That it was deferred.
However, I've been here long enough to know that this has occurred before, and then when it comes time to do it, it's, oh, I think that was, and nobody can ever find it or recall it. And I want to make sure that if it is deferred, and I think that it will be, that in fact it's somehow well documented so that when this appears, someone's not going to have to go back and, oh, gee whiz, I think it was a letter, it was minutes. It needs to be somewhere where it's going to be front and center.
The nice thing about this one is these two requirements is that when somebody goes to build an actual dwelling on that lot, they'll be required to do those plans as per the ordinance. So that's the one saving
this-
grace here.
If this is the property that I'm familiar with, this is a family separation. It's mother and father separating to son.
Son.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone have any other questions? I'll do through my things with Jeff.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Jeff, I'm glad you're on the phone because you know the process that's coming next.
Yes, I do.
And it's
Harry,
gonna
I do.
and it's going to be so much easier with you doing it than for someone who is new. First of all, are you able to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And Jeff, you heard my discussion with Brad regarding the two specific waiver requests. I'm assuming that you're agreeable to obviously that they be deferred, but also that there be something in writing be memorialized so that it's very clear and understandable to the family, so that they're well aware of what will be required when they go to move forward with the property.
We would be fine with that, and perhaps in the approval letter that the township board authors, they can memorialize that in the letter even. That the ENS plan and the stormwater management plan be completed when the building permit is issued.
Right. And that note actually can be put on the plan as well, too.
Yes.
Right, and I think that's a good place to document it as well, so when the plans are pulled out, it's right there in front of them. Okay. Jeff, also the 5 administrative comments, they have either have been completed or will be completed in a timely fashion acceptable to township staff.
Yes. And as Mr. Gutschall, indicated earlier, we did provide revised plans to HRG and to Amanda, but of course with the working conditions being what they are now,
Right.
HRG in particular didn't have an opportunity to re-review the plan.
Okay, and then my final question, of course, is the general comments. Have the comments in number 1, which are Andrew's comments, and specifically the 13 comments in Jason's letter dated April the 15th, have those been completed or will be completed in a timely fashion acceptable to staff?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Are you ready for a motion, Mr. Chair?
Could I add one more thing?
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry.
When we made our resubmittal of the revised plan, I think it was on May 11th, we requested one additional waiver, a written waiver request, and that was related to the requirement to provide a wetland certification on the plan. We're asking for a waiver of that requirement, and the waiver. The waiver request letter is, has written justification, but essentially what we're basing our request on is that there are no wetlands on the new building lot, on new lot 1. And as an aside to that, the original wetland biologist who did the original, I'm sorry, I had my thought reversed there. When he did the original delineation for the property, that was many years ago, I think almost 15 years ago, and since then he's retired. And so we know we have a legitimate wetland delineation. Those wetlands are shown on the overall plan, but it would be tedious, I guess, to try to get Mr. Van Blarden to recertify the wetland delineation he did many, many years ago. I'm not sure whether I could get in touch with him. So I said all that just to ask the board to consider granting a waiver of the wetland certification. And that is an HRG comment.
Okay.
Brad, I just had a question. Why was it not on our paperwork?
I'm not quite sure that
Okay.
I was given this folder by Mrs. Zerbe saying it would be the easiest one to
So let's ask,
to handle. So
Jeff, is there a reason why we don't have this for consideration tonight?
It should have been in the material that we resubmitted to the township.
Oh, it's there?
And I know that HRG received a copy of that as well. But again, Jason wasn't and isn't in a position right now to respond to that. So.
right, it is in the memo from HRG to the township.
Where at, Brad? Because I'm not seeing
Waivers
it.
requested,
It's-
number 5.
Yeah,
I only have 4 waivers on mine.
it's on PDF page 3
I mean, it's a very simple
of the. If you go to your agenda.
matter,
It's the first agenda item, if you click on that, and it's page number 3 of the PDF, towards the bottom. We offer the following comments. Provide a wetland certification statement in accordance with the following section.
Wait, it says we offer the following comments, and it says subdivision and land development.
Correct.
Okay, and then I
Yep.
go 1, 2. I
Number
only
2.
have 3 there.
Number 2 is what he's referring to.
Oh, well, Norm said 5.
I have 5. Hold on. Waiver the requirement to provide a wetland certification to the plan as specified.
And my number 2 says provide a wetland certification statement in accordance with the following section. What
But-
number is your 5 under, Norm?
But what Jeff is also saying,
It's under waivers
that in this
requested.
particular parcel, there is no wetland.
Right.
So if there is no wetland
Requested
there,
waivers, did you see the,
I have no objection approving it with the waiver for wetland certificate if none exist.
Mrs. Zerbe is phoning in, telling us that we do not need a waiver on this item.
okay.
Thanks.
Well,
thanks.
that-
Well,
that-
then that solves the problem, Jeff. We don't need to do that. It's already there.
Good. Well, that's all.
Thank you, Leanne. And Amanda for calling in.
Somebody's watching.
Thank you very much, Amanda. We appreciate that.
Thanks for the technology.
Okay. So now, anything else?
Now you're ready for a motion.
I think we're ready for a motion, Mr. Chrisman.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the preliminary and final subdivision plan for Shane and Diane Devan at 70052 Creek Crossing Drive with the 4 waiver request with footnote for 2 and 3 that they be documented on the plan, as well as a letter so specifying the deferment. The administrative comments being 5, the 2 general comments, and specifically number 2 with the letter dated April the 15th from Jason Hines outlining 13 comments that they will be either have been approved or will be approved by the applicant.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? I don't know if I heard everybody. Okay, it was unanimous, okay. All right, thank you. Jeff, there you go. Thank you. And we now need to move on to improvement guarantees, of which there are 3. Everything looks routine?
They look straightforward. Brad, was there anything I missed?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the improvement guarantees as presented by and recommended by Mr. Gutschall. The extension reduction, 2 extensions and a reduction.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
That takes us to payment of bills of Lower Paxton Township and the Lower Paxton Township Authority. Madam Treasurer.
Yes, I make a motion that we pay the bills of Lower Paxton Township and Lower Paxton Township Authority.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any announcements? There is one item that we haven't discussed. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June 2nd. Because of the COVID-19 situation that we had in April, the primary election was moved to Tuesday, June 2nd. It has typically been our practice when our board meetings fall on election night to move the board meeting to the next day or Wednesday. Mr. Stein, are you available that Wednesday?
I am.
You are. Board, do we wish to follow past practice and move our meeting to Wednesday, June 3rd?
Yes, I think
That's what we've done for a number of years now.
it would be consistent with the policy that, even though it's a past practice, but I think we stay with the consistency.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of activity in this particular primary. There may be something going on in the fall.
It's better Wednesday, June the 3rd than July 3rd.
Well,
Yeah,
July 3rd, I think, is a Friday, if I'm not mistaken.
I
I think
think
it
there's
is
going
a
to be, with all the new machines and assuming we
be.
get people can get out there and there's a lot of people are going to be focused on a lot of things. I think this will be a good time in keeping with what past practice that we go ahead and move it.
How about this side of the,
Yeah, it's fine.
everybody fine? All right, so then our next meeting will be a business meeting of the board on Wednesday, June 3rd at 7 p.m., by which point we hope that public will be able to be present.
That will be the governor's decision, right? Not
Well,
ours.
let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that we move into that yellow phase here next week. So, but in any event, we are most anxious to reopen our meetings and allow public to be part of our meetings. So hopefully in June, we'll be able to do that Wednesday, June 3rd. Anything else?
Mr. Chrisman, next Tuesday, here in this room, we will be having the Lower Paxton Township Authority meeting at 7 o'clock. That's
Anything else?
Chrisman, when I say Mr. Henry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's,
Sorry to tell you.
he's a bit older than me, but that's okay.
I've been in the house too long, it's okay.
Okay, anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.